Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Dana Scranton, and welcome to 8 Minute Wisdom. Now, in today's episode, we are continuing our series on your perpetual assets. These are the assets that you own. Now, we're talking about assets because they have value to you. They are things that you can invest, you can grow, you can possibly even loan them out if you wish, but they are your assets. They are perpetual, they cannot be taken away, and it's up to you to invest them in ways that benefit you and the world, such as you define your world. Well, today, the asset is identity. Now, I've spoken about identity in the past as one of the critical elements of freedom, the freedom to craft and live your identity. But that freedom is also an asset. Okay, identity is who you believe you are, it is who others believe you are, and how who you are and who you believe you are and who you actually are interact with the world. Now, that's kind of a heady definition here, but let me just break it down. Your identity is who you believe you are, and that's different than who you know you are. So that's all within the realm of you. From the outside world, your actions, your words, how you appear creates an identity image in the minds of people out there in the world. So if they believe that your identity is what you believe your identity is, you have a kind of synergy. But here's the question: is what you believe what you know to be true? What's the difference? Well, if you believe that your identity is a certain thing and you align with, let's say, some sports or entertainment star, you believe that's your identity. So you emulate that person. You buy their clothes, you buy their hats, you buy their cars, you use their words. You believe that's your identity, but that's not your identity. That's not who you are. You are someone else at that point. It is an asset, and you can choose to grow it in a way that will benefit you or to invest it in someone else and perpetuate their image, their identity. That's the primary difference. It's like having a $5 bill and saying, okay, I'm going to put this $5 into a trending cryptocurrency, as opposed to here's a $5 bill. I'm going to go hand it to somebody and say, do with it whatever you want. That's the primary difference. Now, the reason I say that in the terms of a $5 bill is because your identity is an asset to you as an individual and as an entrepreneur. When your identity aligns with what the world sees you as and what the world believes you are and can do for them, then you have a synergistic link between you and the people you seek to serve. Your identity is congruent. That means your identity is an asset that will grow whatever your purpose, vision happens to be, whatever your desires are. If that's money, if it's status, if it's gratification, fulfillment, whatever it is, that identity is a key to perpetuating who you truly are. Now, this is kind of a heady, almost philosophical discussion, but very oftentimes in the entrepreneurial world that I live in, um, I see people who emulate others. Now, in the absence of knowledge, skill, and ability, emulating others is a viable means of learning, a viable means of making some progress. But it does not mean you have to become that person. You need to become the person that you truly are, that is aligned with your purpose, your vision, your desires, the things that you truly want in your life. When you craft your identity around that, take ownership of that asset of identity and build it according to who you are and who you want, then you've got power behind you. See, identity is one of those things that it just kind of forms over time unless you take control of it. it morphs. You hear this saying that you become the average of the five people you hang around with. Well, you can interpret that in different ways, but fundamentally what that means is the five influences that you pay attention to or expose yourself to or experience most often will generally tend to average out to be who you end up being. So if you hang around with a certain group of people all the time, there's a pretty good chance that your identity is going to form around their beliefs and values. But those may not be your true congruent values, congruent with who you want to be, where you want to go. So this whole topic of identity is something that would bode you well to get your hands around it, get your head around it, and ask yourself, who am I? Tough, deep question. Who am I? What do I value? What do I believe? What do I want in my life? How do I want to show up in the world? What do I want others to believe me to be? How do I want to serve them? And in the end of all of that, it's okay to ask the question, and what will I receive for having done all of that? That is a completely viable question and objective. Knowing what you want in the end is a means of developing the plan to get there one step at a time, including creating your identity and owning it. Other people, like all the other assets that we have described here, do not own your identity. As soon as you identify with and identify as something or someone who is not you, you are giving away your power. It may appeal to a few people that you align with, but ultimately it may not, in fact, very likely will not align with your long-term goals if you have any. If you truly sit down and ask these questions that I just posed to you, your values, your beliefs, what do you want to show up as in the world and so forth, and what do you want in return for all of that? If you are being true with yourself, then your identity will take a path where you are responsible for it, you own it, and as an asset, you invest it in the service to others, in building your business or your brand, and then ultimately that identity becomes you. So that's today's episode. And I know it's a little bit heady, but the idea of owning your identity as an asset is something you should take very seriously, because it melds into all the things we've spoken about up until now. How you spend your time, your attention, your focus, your energy, your enthusiasm, all of that comes into play when you're building around an identity, because your mind and your attitude play into that. So all of this is integral. It is congruent. These assets, they reinforce one another. When you apply them in a congruent manner, they grow exponentially. They are not linear. They grow exponentially as they reinforce one another. That's what you want, exponential growth. Well, that was a little heady for today, but I hope you got value out of it. Take it seriously and really focus on who you truly are and who you truly want to be for the purpose, the vision, and the desires that mean everything to you. Well, we'll see you out there on that vast frontier of possibilities. And of course, in the next episode. Take care.